They expect you to snap. They expect you to take the bait, lash out, explain yourself, prove something. The world is wired to provoke you. Notifications buzzing, people testing, chaos pressing in from all sides. It's built to shake you, to make you move without thinking, speak without clarity, feel without control. But what if you didn't? What if, in the middle of all that noise, you could just be still? Not because you don't care, but because you've trained your mind to respond instead of react. Because you've anchored yourself in something deeper than impulse. That's what Stoicism teaches us. That your power isn't in what you do when things are easy. It's in how you hold your center when everything around you is begging you to lose it. And in a world that profits off your emotional chaos, your calm becomes rebellion. Your self-control becomes strategy. Your stillness becomes strength. So if you've ever felt like your peace is too easily stolen or your emotions too easily hijacked, this is your moment to reclaim that power, not by fighting harder, but by standing firmer, by mastering what the Stoics call the only true domain of power, your inner world. If you're ready to build that kind of strength with me, not just for show, but for your soul, please subscribe to follow a path back to yourself. Let's walk it together. 1. Don't react on cue. There's a certain silence that unnerves people more than any scream ever could. You've probably felt it, the kind of silence that makes others shift in their seats, talk more than they should, or try harder to get under your skin. It's not emptiness, it's control. The reason some people fear your stillness is because they can't manipulate it. They don't know what you're thinking, how you'll respond, or if you'll respond at all. And that uncertainty? It exposes their need to feel dominant, to pull you into their game where they feel safe, where they know the rules. But here's the truth. Most people don't want connection when they provoke you. They want compliance. They want your energy, your time, your reaction. And the moment you give it, you hand them the script. You become a character in their scene, not yours. There's this quiet strength in pausing, not just biting your tongue, but actually seeing the situation for what it is, someone trying to pull you out of your peace. You don't need to swing back. You don't need to prove that you're smarter, wittier, or tougher. All you need is to not play. Because every time you respond out of impulse, out of that gut instinct to defend yourself, you're actually stepping into someone else's frame. You're reacting on their timeline. You're proving you can be summoned, triggered, poked into motion like a toy with buttons. And the cost: your energy, your dignity, your clarity. Calm isn't the absence of emotion, it's the presence of mastery. It means you know exactly what you feel, but you've trained yourself to decide if it needs to be expressed, and when. It's like walking through fire without letting the flames touch your skin. You feel the heat, you acknowledge it, but you don't flail. You don't let the world see you burn. You hold the line. And in that stillness, people start to see something they can't control. That's when they either respect you or reveal themselves. Either way, you win. Think about how often people throw little traps your way. The sarcasm slipped into casual conversation, the jokes that aren't really jokes, the compliments that somehow sting. These aren't accidents. They're tests. They want to know, will you flinch? Will you fight? Will you try to make them feel bad for trying to make you feel small? And most of us fall for it. We want to correct them. We want justice. But what we really want is for them to admit what they did. And that rarely happens. So instead of closure, we get frustration. Instead of clarity, we get caught. Again, Stoicism teaches us something powerful here. You are responsible for your response, not their action. That space between what they do and how you react, that's your entire kingdom, and you either guard it or you abandon it. Epictetus once said, If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. That hits hard, doesn't it? Because it shifts the focus from blaming them to disciplining you. It's not about letting people walk all over you. It's about choosing how and when you respond, because not every attack deserves a war. Some things aren't worth the cost of your serenity. There's a deep kind of dignity in not explaining yourself to people who are trying to misunderstand you, in not wasting your clarity on someone who's only interested in your confusion. When you stop reacting, you stop bleeding energy into every small insult or sudden mood swing that someone throws at you. You start choosing your moments, and when you speak, it actually means something, because your words aren't scattered like panic, they're placed like stone. And look, this isn't about being cold or emotionless, it's about being anchored. Calm doesn't mean you let things slide that matter. It means you decide what matters enough to break your silence. It means you can sit in discomfort without needing to lash out just to feel powerful. You can let someone else throw their tantrum, say their piece, even insult you, and still stay rooted. Because your identity isn't built on their approval, and your peace isn't borrowed from their validation, it's yours, built from the inside. You'll notice something wild when you stop reacting. People don't know what to do with it. They get louder. They get meaner. They start accusing you of being distant or fake or too calm. Why? Because your stillness highlights their chaos. Your quiet shows them how loud they really are. Your self-control reflects back their lack of it. And that mirror, it's uncomfortable. But you're not here to make others comfortable at the cost of your own integrity. This is especially true in close relationships, family, friends, even romantic ones. The people closest to you know your buttons. They know your old patterns. They expect you to react the same way you always have. So when you don't, it disorients them. And sometimes it makes them push harder. But you're not who you used to be. You're not here to prove anything anymore. You're here to live in alignment. And part of that is deciding that not every battle is worth your breath. Not every slight deserves your explanation. Some things just get a shrug and silence. This silence, though, it's not passive. It's deliberate. It's strategy. It's discipline. It's knowing that your time, your mind, and your heart are valuable, and you're not giving them away to people who haven't earned access. Because when you train yourself to not react, something shifts. You stop being a puppet, and you start being a presence. A presence that doesn't rise to bait. A presence that doesn't need to match energy. A presence that feels untouchable. But let's be real, this takes practice. It takes failing at it. It takes moments where you do react and regret it, where you say too much, where you let them pull you back into old habits. That's part of the path. Every time you get pulled out of your peace, it's just another chance to build it stronger, to notice the trigger faster, to pause a little longer. And slowly, your reactions turn into responses. Your silence stops feeling like swallowing emotion and starts feeling like owning your power. And power, in this form, isn't loud. It's not a flex. It's not about being better than anyone else. It's about being better for yourself, more stable, more focused, more at ease. Because you've stopped giving away your energy like candy at a parade. You've started conserving it for what truly deserves it. Your growth, your purpose, your peace. You've become someone who can walk into a storm and not become it. Someone who listens more than they speak. Someone who pauses, not because they're afraid, but because they're calculating. There's also a quiet compassion in this. When you stop reacting, you start seeing clearly. You realize that most people's attacks come from fear, insecurity, or pain. They're not always trying to hurt you. They're trying to manage their own chaos, and you're just in the blast radius. That doesn't make their behavior okay. but it helps you release the need to fight every time. You can step back, not just in strength, but in understanding. That's when your calm becomes wisdom. And when you hold that kind of calm consistently, people notice. Not just the ones trying to provoke you, but the ones watching you, learning from you. Your presence starts to teach others that it's possible, that maybe they don't have to lose their mind every time life presses in, that maybe stillness is an option. That's how peace spreads, not through lectures, but through example, through the silent discipline of someone who refuses to be baited, someone who knows they don't need to react on cue because they are no longer an actor in someone else's play. They are the director of their own, and that's where your power lives. 2. Let silence do the talking. There's something about silence that makes people uneasy. Not the kind of silence when you're alone in nature or curled up reading a book, but the kind that happens between people, in a conversation, in an argument, in a room full of tension where one person chooses not to speak. That kind of silence feels loud, uncomfortable, confrontational even, and that's exactly why it's so powerful. We live in a world that teaches us to fill every second, to respond instantly, to explain ourselves before anyone even asks. But what if the strongest move isn't to speak louder, but to say nothing at all? Silence unsettles people who need chaos to feel in control. Some folks rely on noise, the back and forth, the drama, the endless commentary, to feel like they're winning. Because as long as you're talking, defending, explaining, they know where you are. They can track your emotions. They can predict your next move. But when you go quiet, you become unpredictable. And that unpredictability exposes their insecurity. They start wondering what you're thinking, what you're planning, what you might say, or worse, what you won't say. It's not the absence of noise that disturbs them. It's the presence of composure. Silence is not weakness. It's not surrender. It's not avoidance. It's discipline. It's the decision to step out of the storm instead of becoming part of it. You don't need to argue to prove you're right. You don't need to interrupt to be heard. And you definitely don't need to explain your every move to people who've already made up their minds. Some things don't need clarification. Some people don't deserve an answer. Let your actions speak. Let your absence speak. Let your stillness become a message so clear it doesn't need words. When you sit in silence long enough, something fascinating begins to happen. People fill the void. They talk too much. They repeat themselves. They reveal things they didn't mean to share. That's when the mask slips. That's when their intentions, fears, and insecurities spill out. Not because you forced them to, but because your silence made them uncomfortable enough to expose what's really inside. And you just listen. You observe. You collect the truth without lifting a finger, because the person who listens sees more than the one who speaks. This idea runs deep in Stoic philosophy. Marcus Aurelius, reflecting on human behavior, once wrote, "The best answer to anger is silence." It's not just about refusing to fight. It's about refusing to lower yourself. It's about maintaining your inner order while someone else tries to throw you into disorder. Because when you stay silent, you're not just avoiding drama, you're refusing to give up your peace. And that choice, over time, becomes your reputation. People start to know you as someone who doesn't rise to petty arguments, someone who doesn't need to win the noise game to be heard. Now let's be honest, silence takes strength, especially in a world where the loudest voice often gets the most attention. When someone accuses you of something, your instinct is to defend yourself. When someone misjudges you, your first urge is to set the record straight. But here's the hard truth. Most of the time, defending yourself won't change their mind. It'll just exhaust you. And if someone's committed to misunderstanding you, no explanation will ever be enough. That's when silence becomes not just a tool, but a shield. You stop bleeding energy for people who aren't listening anyway. You also stop giving people emotional shortcuts. See, when you react quickly, especially with anger, sarcasm, or defensiveness, you make it easy for people to label you. There it is, they think. There's the real you. But when you go quiet, they don't get that closure. They're left wondering. And that wonder, that confusion, that's powerful, because it puts you in control of the tempo. You're no longer dancing to their rhythm. They're sitting there, tapping their fingers, waiting on you. And the longer they wait, the more they reveal about their own need for control. Silence also gives you the space to reflect. Not every thought needs to be spoken. Not every feeling needs to be shared. In silence, you get clarity. You get time to figure out what's really going on, before you say something you'll wish you could take back. Carl Jung once said, "Silence is a source of great strength." That's not a metaphor, that's a psychological truth. When you withdraw from the noise, you withdraw from manipulation, confusion, and external pressure. You return to your own center. That's where your wisdom lives. That's where you remember what actually matters and what doesn't. Think about how often we use words as armor. We talk to defend ourselves, to justify our choices, to soften awkwardness. But sometimes words get in the way. They complicate what doesn't need to be complicated. They dilute truth. They invite confusion. There's a reason Stoics valued brevity, because clarity thrives in simplicity. And sometimes the clearest thing you can do is say nothing. There's also a spiritual quality to silence. It allows you to witness, not just what others are doing, but what you're doing. Your patterns, your triggers, your impulses. When you're always talking, you're always reacting. But in silence, you begin to observe. You start to understand. That's where real self-awareness is born. It doesn't come from more noise. It comes from stepping back and watching your own mind without judgment. That's Stoicism in practice. Not just being calm, but seeing clearly through the storm. Of course, some people will be bothered by your silence. They'll accuse you of being distant, cold, rude. But that says more about their discomfort than your boundaries. Don't let guilt drag you into the noise you walked away from. You're not responsible for managing other people's discomfort with your peace. And if someone truly values your presence, they'll learn to sit in that stillness with you, not demand you fill it for them. In relationships, this can be transformative. When you stop rushing to respond, when you let silence settle instead of forcing the next word, you create space for real connection, for truth, for pause. You stop reacting out of fear and start listening out of care. You stop performing and start being. That kind of presence is rare. That kind of presence is healing. There's also a tactical strength in silence. In negotiation, for example, the person who speaks less often holds more power. In confrontation, the one who stays calm usually sees the path out before the other even realizes there's a choice. In leadership, silence shows restraint, it shows control, and it earns trust because people don't follow noise. They follow direction, they follow clarity, and clarity comes from silence first. But remember, silence doesn't mean suppressing emotion. It means owning it. You can feel deeply and still choose to say nothing. That's not repression, that's mastery. And the more you practice it, the more you'll realize that silence is not empty. It's full of patience, full of strength, full of everything the noise is trying to distract you from. Eventually, people start to understand, not because you told them, but because your silence made them listen. Your silence taught them how to treat you. Your silence reminded them that some energies can't be matched, and shouldn't be. Because your calm isn't just a mood, it's a message. It says, I know who I am, I know what I stand for, and I don't need to shout it to prove it. That's the kind of silence that shifts the room, that disarms arguments, that breaks cycles, that protects peace, that teaches without preaching, that leads without forcing. And once you tap into that kind of silence, you never unlearn it. It becomes part of who you are. A quiet, steady presence in a world that's forgotten how to breathe. So the next time you're tempted to speak, to defend, to fight for your voice, pause, breathe, and ask yourself, is this moment asking for noise or for presence? Because silence, when used with wisdom, speaks in ways noise never could. And when the world around you starts to shake, your silence becomes the anchor that holds everything in place. 3. Praise is a soft trap. We all like being recognized, don't we? A compliment here, a pat on the back there. It feels good to be seen, appreciated, acknowledged for the hard work we put in. We've all experienced that rush when someone tells us we're doing a great job, that we're smart or talented or something else that boosts our self-worth. But here's the thing that most people don't realize. There's a fine line between feeling good about a compliment and needing it to feel good about ourselves. And once you cross that line, praise becomes a soft trap, one that slowly starts to pull at your self-esteem and your sense of worth. At first, it's subtle. You might brush it off, or laugh it off, or even deny it a little. It's just a compliment, no big deal. But then it starts to happen more often. Maybe at work, maybe with friends, maybe even from strangers. At some point you notice the smile on your face doesn't feel quite as real unless someone gives you that positive feedback. It starts to feel like you need it. And that's when the trap closes. Because now, your worth is attached to external validation. You're no longer standing on solid ground. You're floating, waiting for the next compliment to keep you in the air. The Stoic path, however, tells us something different. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." Think about that for a second. The happiness of your life doesn't depend on what others say about you. It doesn't depend on whether or not you get noticed. It depends on what you tell yourself. The world can praise you or criticize you, but the Stoic understands that neither should define them. Praise and flattery are like sunshine, nice when they come, but not something you rely on to survive. They're external forces that change with the weather. If you base your happiness and self-worth on them, you'll always be at the mercy of the weather. And believe me, it's unpredictable. So what happens when you get attached to praise? You start performing for approval. You begin shaping your actions and decisions around what others think of you, rather than around your own values or principles. You're no longer acting because it's right. You're acting because you want to hear those words again. And here's the real kicker. When you perform for approval, you're giving up your power. The moment you start relying on praise for your happiness, you lose the ability to truly live authentically. You become predictable. You become a person who only does what gets them noticed, instead of doing what aligns with their values. You see, the Stoics teach us that your actions should be driven by inner virtue, not external rewards. We act because it's right, not because we want others to notice. When you live in accordance with your values, your actions are solid, they're rooted. There's no need to perform for the world. You are who you are, no matter what anyone else thinks. Praise becomes something you accept, but don't cling to. You appreciate it as a reminder that you're on the right path, but you don't rely on it to guide your steps. This mindset isn't about rejecting all praise or saying you never need recognition. It's about creating a foundation so strong that no compliment, no matter how glowing, can shake your sense of self. Carl Jung spoke about this idea of inner strength when he said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." To truly become who you are, you have to detach from the opinions of others. You have to let go of the need to be validated by external sources. When you stop performing for the approval of others, you open up space to actually be who you are. You become self-actualized, living from a place of internal clarity and authenticity. The people who praise you aren't the ones who determine your worth. You do. When you live from this place of self-truth, praise becomes just a fleeting moment, not a permanent fixture of your identity. But what about criticism? Well, it's much the same. If you let criticism define you, if you take it as the truth about who you are, then you've given up your control. You're letting the world dictate your emotional state. Stoicism teaches us that criticism, just like praise, is an external force. It's someone else's perspective. And if you rely on others' opinions for your self-worth, you'll always be at their mercy. Criticism, too, can't define you. It's a reflection of someone else's perspective, not your truth. The goal is to develop an inner clarity where neither praise nor criticism has the power to make you feel less than or more than you are. In this way, you begin to build true emotional resilience. Praise and criticism will always come and go, but your sense of self should be anchored in something much deeper. When you let go of the need to please others, you reclaim your power. You no longer bend to the whims of praise or the sting of criticism. You stand firm in your own truth, and from this place, you can act in alignment with your values, not your ego. Think about the last time someone praised you. How did it feel? Did it make you feel like you were on top of the world? Or did it feel like a fleeting moment, something that quickly faded once the next person said something else? Praise feels great in the moment, but relying on it leaves you always chasing that next high. The key is not in avoiding praise altogether, it's in understanding its role. Praise, like criticism, is just noise. It's something that exists outside of you, and when you make it central to your happiness, you lose yourself in the shuffle. So, how do we shift? First, we have to learn how to detach from the need for approval. When someone praises you, thank them, but don't let it take root. Acknowledge it, but don't hold on to it. Let it flow through you, not into you. Recognize that your worth doesn't depend on how others see you, but on how you see yourself. By internalizing this mindset, you free yourself from the trap of constant validation seeking. You start to live for yourself, not for the applause. Second, we need to develop an unshakable sense of self. This comes from understanding who you are, independent of external recognition. When you stop wasting your time performing for others, you create more space to live authentically. You stop getting sidetracked by the opinions of others and focus on what truly matters, living in alignment with your values. This means making decisions based on your own principles, not because you want to be liked or praised. And when criticism comes, as it inevitably will, don't be shaken by it. Remember, it's just a reflection of someone else's perspective. It says more about them than it does about you. You don't need to defend yourself or explain away your actions. Stay rooted in your inner clarity. When you stop trying to prove yourself to others, you stop giving them the power to diminish you. Instead, you maintain your peace. You stand firm in your own identity. As you walk this path, praise and criticism will no longer have the same power over you. You'll begin to appreciate them for what they are, temporary, fleeting moments that have no real bearing on your worth. Instead, you'll start to recognize that true fulfillment comes not from external validation, but from aligning your actions with your values and principles. That's the true path to peace, the Stoic path. You are the one who gets to decide your worth, not the world around you. So, smile, nod, and keep walking. The applause doesn't define you. Your inner peace does. 4. Slow down. When the world speeds up. There's a strange thing that happens when chaos takes over. It doesn't just make things louder or messier, it makes everything move faster. People start talking in a rush, texting like it's a race, demanding decisions like the clock is about to run out. It's as if the world itself begins to spin a little faster, pushing everyone along with it. But here's the kicker. None of that speed is real productivity. It's panic disguised as urgency. It's the noise of everyone scrambling, trying to act like they're getting somewhere, when, in fact, they're just speeding toward mistakes. The real skill, the true power, comes when you decide to slow down. And that doesn't mean pausing everything completely. It means taking control of your pace while the world tries to pull you into its frenzy. In Stoic philosophy, the concept of slowing down isn't just about reducing speed physically. It's about creating inner stillness. When everything around you is rushing, you can be the one who stays rooted. Instead of reacting to the chaos around you, you move in deliberate, thoughtful steps. As Marcus Aurelius wisely said, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. When the pressure builds and people around you are sprinting, that's the moment to pause and consider the next move. That's when you gain clarity. You stop being swept away by the current, and instead you navigate with intention. You stop reacting and start choosing your response. Think about it. How often do you find yourself making hasty decisions because everything feels urgent? How many times have you agreed to something, sent off a message, or made a choice because you felt like you had no time to think? It's like a race where the finish line keeps moving. That's not urgency. It's anxiety, dressed up as productivity. We've all been there. Someone sends an email with urgent in the subject line, and immediately the mind kicks into gear. The pressure starts to mount. Your heart rate picks up. And before you know it, you've jumped into something without considering the consequences. But slowing down, it's the antidote. The calm mind knows how to handle that pressure. It doesn't give in to the rush. Instead, it chooses to move with purpose, taking one step at a time, carefully placing each foot, making sure it's the right move. Carl Jung once said, "Hurry is not of the devil, it is the devil." Think about that for a moment. We often think that speed is synonymous with efficiency, with productivity, with getting things done. But Jung, in his profound wisdom, suggests that it's not. It's a trap. And when we rush, when we give in to the frantic pace of the world, we lose ourselves in it. We lose the ability to think critically, to make decisions that are in alignment with our true values. When everyone around us is racing to the finish line, we have to remember that we don't need to be in the race at all. Our power is in the decision to move with intention, not with speed. There's also something deeply powerful about seeing what others miss when you move slowly. When everyone else is frantically trying to get ahead, you start to notice things they don't. You catch the details that get lost in the rush. You hear the things that aren't said. You feel the things that are overlooked. That's the strength of a calm mind. It sees more because it's not in a rush. Think about how often we make mistakes when we're speeding through our tasks, just trying to check off the boxes. We don't give ourselves time to think, time to question, time to evaluate. But when you slow down, when you take a moment to breathe, you suddenly see all the things that were just out of reach in the blur of speed. You notice the nuances in a conversation. You catch the inconsistencies in an argument. You can see the consequences of your actions before they play out, and because of that, you make fewer mistakes. In a world that demands more and more of our time, slowing down is an act of resistance. It's not laziness, it's strategic. It's not hesitation, it's discipline. The more you learn to slow down in the face of urgency, the more you begin to master your circumstances. It's like being a calm observer in a storm. You're watching the chaos swirl around you, but you're not swept away by it. You move with purpose, with clarity. You understand that the race is not as important as the choices you make along the way. And as you move slowly and thoughtfully, you'll find that the world around you begins to change. People start to notice your composure. They start to respect your ability to stay grounded. And that's when you realize just how powerful calm can be. Stoicism teaches us that external events are out of our control, but our responses are always within our power. In a world that wants us to speed up, to react without thinking, to rush from one thing to the next, the Stoic path is to slow down, to observe, and to respond with purpose. When life throws chaos your way, the most powerful thing you can do is take a deep breath, pause, and think before you act. The power of the calm mind isn't in resisting the storm, it's in choosing how to navigate through it. When you slow down, you start to see the world differently. You begin to realize that you don't need to compete with the world's rush. You don't need to get caught in the frenzy. Instead, you find your own rhythm, your own pace, and in that rhythm, you become unstoppable. The most remarkable part of slowing down is that it doesn't just benefit you, it changes the way others see you. The people who rush, who react impulsively, who make snap decisions, they're easily influenced, easily manipulated, easily thrown off course. But when you slow down, when you take control of your pace, you become a force to be reckoned with. You become the calm in the storm, the one who stands firm while the world spins around them. And that, in itself, is a powerful message. It sends a signal to everyone around you that you are not moved by the chaos. You are not moved by their urgency. You are in control of your own actions, your own decisions, your own mind. And that is the ultimate strength. There's also a quiet elegance in slowing down. Think about how many times you've rushed into something only to realize later that you missed something important. Maybe you rushed into a conversation and said something you didn't mean, or you made a decision too quickly and had to backtrack. The beauty of slowing down is that it gives you the space to make decisions with wisdom, not haste. It allows you to step back and evaluate, to question, to reconsider. And when you take that time, your decisions are stronger, more thoughtful, and more aligned with your true values. You stop acting out of fear, out of impulse, out of pressure. You start acting out of clarity, out of conviction, out of confidence. So next time the world speeds up, take a moment to breathe. Slow your pace, feel the tension loosen, and realize that in doing so, you're not just avoiding mistakes, you're making space for wisdom. You're choosing to move with purpose, not to be swept along in a current that doesn't serve you. You're showing the world that while they're rushing toward the finish line, you're calmly walking your own path, confident that the journey is just as important as the destination. 5. Watch what people do, not what they say. It's strange how easy it is to believe someone when their words line up with what we want to hear. We get drawn in by kindness, impressed by promises, and sometimes even comforted by apologies. But words, as beautiful and convincing as they can be, are cheap. They can be rehearsed, shaped, and served in just the right tone to hide what's really going on. What truly reveals a person isn't what they say, it's what they do when no one is watching, or when things aren't going their way. That's where the truth lives, not in the moments of calm, but in moments of pressure, silence, and discomfort. That's when patterns begin to show. And once you begin to see this, really see it, you can't unsee it. You start to notice the difference between what people say they value and what their actions actually show. You catch the little inconsistencies. The friend who says they support you, but always finds a way to shift the conversation back to themselves. The co-worker who talks about teamwork, but disappears when there's actual work to share. The person who says they love honesty, but only when it doesn't challenge them. None of this is accidental. It's a pattern, and patterns don't lie. Stoicism teaches us to separate appearances from reality, not just in the world around us, but in people. It urges us to develop a calm mind that isn't swayed by charm or hooked by smooth talk. Because the Stoic understands that reality isn't in what's said, it's in what's repeated. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You should